listening to the Signalman Show on the Brother IBRO. I'm your host, Josh Urban. And Billy Joel's Moving Out. Love that tune. First cut off The Stranger. And Billy Joel right there. I hit the wrong button. I'm always hitting the wrong button. You're listening to Radio IBRO, The Brother. I'm your host, Josh Urban. So nice to be here with you this afternoon. It's a little bit chilly out there, but we got a fire going inside. Clever tie-in. I haven't heard any AFI in a while, but I gotta fix that. So, folks, hope you're doing well. I want to give you the latest report on the kindness exchange. Now, if you're just like, what is this kindness exchange business? The idea is the holidays can be a little rocky sometimes, right? So sometimes the best way to help ourselves is by helping somebody else. The idea is simple. You do something nice for somebody. Can be small, can be big, doesn't matter. You tweet about it, post about it on any social media using the hashtag kindness exchange, where your tag posts are printed out and put on a lit beacon tree in my front yard, literally lighting up the night. So you can do a beacon tree yourself, and if you're having a hard time, you're especially encouraged to do this. We're going to get into some of the philosophy in a little while about all of that stuff, but want to give you a couple of reports, a couple of fun things that I've been doing. First, I bought one of my buddies Seth dinner. Now, Seth is always helping me out, man. He gave me a guitar, and then he bought me lunch, and we had like this battle, who could get the credit card to the waitress faster. And then met up with him a couple weeks ago for some Chinese food, and he was really fast on that draw, and he said, hey man, you're gonna have to get up early. You're gonna have to get up a lot earlier if you want to trick me, and you must be out of your mind. Well, I am out of my mind, Seth, so I showed up a little bit before he did last time. I said, oh, I'm going to get him this time. I was real sneaky, and I showed up and I gave the waitress my card. As soon as I walked in, I said, I need your help. This is what's happening. I'm gonna get the tab. And we were sitting there, and he said, hey man, I hope you don't try anything crazy. I said, Seth, you told me that I would have to get up a lot earlier in the morning. And you know what I did this morning? He said, what? I said, I got up early, and the waitress already has my card. Ha! In your face. It was like a nice war, and I won. And it was pretty cool. So that was my first good deed. My second good deed I want to tell you about, because it's so exciting to see kids get involved in music. One of my students, his name is Caleb, he saw my Victrolas that I just got. You heard it on the show a couple of weeks ago. He was so fascinated by these Victrolas. He said, man, I want a Victrola. I think he's like 10 or 11, something like that. So I happen to have an extra record player around. Now, it's not a Victrola, and my garage is full of like weird old 70s equipment. So I saw him last week. It was the kickoff to the kindness exchange, and I said, hey man, you want to borrow a record player? He said, sure. So I hooked him up with a record player, an old receiver, an old pair of speakers I got at the thrift store, and then my buddy Mike has provided the record player to the show and a lot of vinyl here. He gave me a couple boxes of records a couple weeks ago, and there was extra records that I already had duplicates of. So I gave those to Caleb. So here he is. He's getting started off on his hipster path. How delightful is that? Not only does he get a record player, but I get something out of it. And this is where we get into the philosophy, some of the deep psychological theory of kindness. Well, there's a whole lot of it. But the project is designed to raise awareness about it and not just be nice. I think that's become a saccharine cliche. Just be nice. Well, yeah, that's great if you can do it, but there's a lot of times where we don't feel like it. We might not feel like we have the resources to be nice. We might not be inclined to be nice. And there's sometimes where one shouldn't be nice. And that's perfectly acceptable. We don't want to be nice all the time. As Jordan Peterson say, if you don't want to be harmless, that's a terrible thing to be. So we're just looking at one facet of it today, and that is the idea that, well, a two-part idea. One is that we get something from our kind actions, and then the second part of the idea is, do we ever do anything that's not for ourselves? So let's start with the second one first, because I'm a topsy-turvy sort of fellow. Do we ever do anything that is not for ourselves? Now this is a strange idea, and something that might feel unpleasant to think about. Because one way we could think of it is, are we always selfish? And is selfish a bad thing? We usually think of selfish as eating the last piece of pizza when you've already had 10. But do we ever do anything that is not for ourselves? Doing something good is actually good for us. Giving a gift is actually good for everybody, and it's good for us. It's our highest good, and we somehow deep down know that. So even when we're giving and selfless, so to speak, it's actually fulfilling a spiritual need for us, one could argue, right? I mean, walk with me here. Feel free to disagree. We're just chatting on the radio. I'm going to set up a phone so next week we can have call-ins, because that would be so much fun. That's a side note. So do we ever do anything that is not for ourselves? You might say, well, what about volunteering, helping the poor? That's for the poor. That's not for me. Yes, but you do get something from that, do you not? You feel good about yourself. You say, I am secure and stable enough in my life to go out and help other people. So you get something from that exchange. Simon Sinek talks about, he's a great business trainer, and he talks about when we give a homeless person something, we're actually, if we give them $1, we're actually buying a feeling of goodwill. That's what they're selling. We feel good about ourselves. And this is not a bad thing. It's just an interesting thing. Trying to see clearly how we work. So do we ever do anything that is not for ourselves? We might take something really extreme. And this is really going to get everybody's goat. But hey, I'm a talk radio guy, so that's what I'm supposed to do, right? Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa, wow. I mean, in the slums, giving her life away to help other people. You would think that's about as selfless as one could get. But I would bring up the point is, she got something from that too. And God bless her for doing that. And that's more than I would be able to do. So I'm not saying, Mother Teresa, oh yes, she loved that. Most of the time was, I would guess 99.9% of the time, it was excruciatingly hard. But if she knew that was her highest good, she was getting something out of that, which is a good thing. So in this case, maybe there is no such thing as being truly selfless, but that's okay. If we see what's really good for us, it's doing the right thing. What is the right thing? Well, that's a whole nother discussion. We're going to have to devote at least half of a show to that. Well, a little bit more than that. But the point is, interesting thing to ponder. Do we ever do anything that's not for ourselves? So this brings us to the first part of the two-part theory or facet that we're looking at. What do we get from kindness? We usually think of kindness as strictly for the other person. You can have the last piece of pizza. And boy, that is a big kindness, because I love pizza. But we also, again, get something from that. Giving money to a homeless person. We get something from that. We get the feeling that, hey, I'm making a difference in somebody's life, and that's important, and I want to do that. And I'm improving as a person, and my spirit is growing through that. If you can buy spiritual growth for $1, well, that's a pretty good deal, is it not? So, this is something that I would suggest trying. Experiment. And I'm really saying this to myself. I need to remind myself about this. Whenever I'm having a hard time, especially around this time of year, I tend to think of waiting until I'm in a better place before I do anything for anybody else. I'm like, well, I can't be nice right now because I'm hurt. Well, perhaps that's the best time to reach outside. Now, sometimes it is impossible, and I do recognize and respect that. And I'm not asking you to do anything that you feel that you can't. But if you're just a little grumpy, I get a little grumpy a lot. I'm like, I don't feel like doing anything nice. Sometimes this is a great time to do something nice, to reach outside of oneself, to try to trick the Seth that you know and get there early and pay for his dinner. You can take all of your angst and your snark and you can put it into deviousness to do something nice for somebody. Give it a shot. Let me know how it goes. Josh@joshurban.com, on Twitter @Don'tJoshMe. We're streaming this live on Instagram @JoshUrban. And remember, tag those posts to Kindness Exchange. I know these are some weird, psychological, half-formed, half-baked, one might say, thoughts, but let me know what you think. Again, tag those posts, let's light up the night. The difference is up to us. The reins are in our hands. Let's check it out. Now, I'd like to close out with some Lou Reed, Perfect Day. Thanks for tuning in to Radio IBRO and the Signalman Show. We'll catch you on the flip side. We'll light up that night.